Hello, dear students. Welcome our this session. Our today's journey will begin with Act 3 from Julius Caesar. So let's start with Scene 1. The morning sun shone brightly upon the Capitol. Senators, citizens, and officials gathered in the open square, their voices rising in a lively chorus. Business was to be conducted, honors to be given, and the greatest man of Rome, Julius Caesar, was on his way. Through the streets he came, surrounded by those who called themselves his friends: Cassius, Casca, Decius, Cinna, Metellus Cimber, Trebonius, Ligarius, and, walking with troubled heart, Brutus. They spoke to him cheerfully, bowing low, but in their hidden glances lay sharp steel and deadly intent. Among the crowd stood Artemidorus, clutching his letter of warning. His heart pounded as he saw Caesar approach, regal and confident, a throng of supporters at his side. He stepped forward, holding out the paper with trembling hands. "Caesar! Read this, I beg you. It touches your safety most nearly. Read it instantly." Caesar took the letter, but at that moment others pressed him with petitions, and the crowd surged around. Artemidorus cried again, "O Caesar, read mine first. It concerns you above all others." But Caesar, brushing him aside, said loftily, "What concerns myself I will read last. First, I must consider Rome." He passed on without another glance, and the warning that could have saved his life remained unread. Artemidorus was left behind, despair written across his face. Nearby, the soothsayer who had once called out, "Beware the Ides of March," stood watching. Caesar caught sight of him and, with a smile that was almost mocking, said, "The Ides of March are come." "Aye, Caesar," the soothsayer answered gravely, "but not gone." Caesar dismissed him with a laugh and continued into the Capitol where the Senate awaited. Inside, the great hall filled with senators. The marble floor gleamed, the tall columns echoed with voices. Caesar took his seat upon the raised chair, prepared to hear petitions. Metellus Cimber stepped forward, bowing low. "Most high, most mighty, most puissant Caesar, I come as a humble petitioner. My brother Publius has been banished. I beg of you, recall him to Rome." Caesar regarded him with calm disdain. "Your petition is rejected. Were I to be swayed by flattery or bending knees, I would be less than Caesar. Know this. I am constant as the northern star, fixed and unshaken. The stars in heaven may move, but Caesar does not. Publius shall not return." As he spoke, the conspirators gathered closer. Brutus himself drew near, though his heart ached with every step. Cassius pressed forward, Casca shadowed his side. Metellus fell at Caesar's feet. "But Caesar—" "Beg not," Caesar said sharply. "These kneelings and entreaties may move men, but I am not made of such stuff. I am Caesar. I cannot be swayed," Cassius joined his plea. "Pardon Publius, Caesar," Decius added his voice. "Pardon him." Even Brutus bent low, whispering, "Be merciful, Caesar." Caesar's voice rang out, proud and unyielding. "I was constant Cimber should be banished, and constant do remain to keep him so." At that moment, Casca stepped behind him, his hand upon a dagger. He leaned close and hissed, "Speak, hands, for me!" With a sudden thrust, Casca struck. The blade pierced Caesar's shoulder. "Villain Casca, what dost thou?" Caesar cried, rising from his chair. Then the others closed in. One after another, steel flashed and struck. Cassius slashed, Decius stabbed, Cinna drove his blade, Metellus cut deep. Caesar staggered, his white robe stained crimson. Finally, Brutus came. For a heartbeat, Caesar's eyes met his. There was shock, pain, and disbelief. His voice, faint with despair, breathed the words, "Et tu, brute." "Then fall, Caesar." With that, he sank beneath the blows, collapsing at the base of Pompey's statue, his blood pooling upon the stones. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then Brutus raised his voice, trembling but firm. "Romans, be calm. Ambition's debt is paid. Caesar is slain for the good of Rome." The conspirators lifted their swords, glistening with blood. They cried out together, "Liberty! Freedom! Tyranny is dead!" Their voices echoed against the marble walls. but in their hearts unease already stirred. Cassius turned to Brutus. "Where shall we go first? Shall we proclaim our cause in the streets?" "Let's bathe our hands in Caesar's blood," Brutus said. "Then we will walk forth to the marketplace, our swords aloft, crying peace, freedom, and liberty." And so they did. Each man dipped his hands in the fallen leader's blood, smearing it upon his arms and faces like priests of sacrifice. With their crimson-stained weapons, they strode into the light of day, ready to justify their deed before the people of Rome. Behind them, the lifeless body of Caesar lay still, his blood soaking into the stones, his fall marking the end of one age and the beginning of another, darker, uncertain, and full of fire. Scene 2. The Forum of Rome was alive with turmoil. Word of Caesar's death had spread like wildfire, racing from mouth to mouth, filling the air with confusion, fear, and rumor. People poured into the open square, merchants abandoning their stalls, soldiers hurrying from their posts, commoners rushing from every alley. They pressed together in a sea of anxious faces, their voices clashing in waves of uncertainty. Is it true? Caesar is slain? Who dared strike him? Brutus. Brutus himself was among them. The name of Brutus carried weight. Many loved him, many trusted him. Yet the thought that he, Caesar's friend, had raised his hand in murder struck their hearts with awe and dread. Then Brutus himself appeared, stepping onto the rostrum, the raised platform from which orators addressed the people. His figure was calm, his face pale but resolute. His hands still bore the stains of blood, yet he carried himself with the dignity of a Roman noble. The citizens surged forward, voices clamoring. "Tell us why, Brutus. Why have you done this thing?" He raised his arm, and the crowd fell gradually into silence. His voice carried clear across the square, measured and solemn. "Romans, countrymen, friends, hear me for my cause, and be silent that you may listen. Believe me for mine honor, and have respect for my honor, that you may believe. Censure me in your wisdom, and awaken your senses, that you may judge. If there be any in this assembly, any dear friend of Caesar's, to him I say that Brutus's love for Caesar was no less than his. If then that friend demand why Brutus rose against Caesar, this is my answer. Not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more." A murmur ran through the crowd. The words were simple, direct, spoken without flourish, the kind of speech Romans respected. Brutus pressed on. "Had you rather Caesar were living and die all slaves than that Caesar were dead to live all free men? As Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoice at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him. There are tears for his love, joy for his fortune, honor for his valor, and death for his ambition. Who is here so base that would be a bondman? If any, speak, for him have I offended. Who is here so rude that would not be a Roman? If any, speak, for him have I offended. Who is here so vile that will not love his country? If any, speak, for him have I offended." I pause for a reply. The citizens cried out in one voice, "None, Brutus! None, none!" Brutus lifted his head higher, his voice steady. "I have the same dagger for myself, when it shall please my country to need my death." The people shouted again, louder, voices swelling with approval. "Live, Brutus! Live, live! Bring him to his house! Crown him! Let him be Caesar!" Brutus raised his hand once more, silencing their cries. "Good countrymen, let me depart alone. I have told you why I slew Caesar. The cause is sufficient. Stay here with Antony. Render him true attention. He shall, by our permission, give you reasons of Caesar's death and to show you his body. With Antony shall go our hearts. For Brutus is not only satisfied with himself, but also rejoices in the spirit of his country. And so, I leave you, noble citizens, to Antony's words and Caesar's wounds." With that, Brutus descended from the rostrum. The crowd parted for him with respect, many reaching out to touch his hand, some calling blessings upon his name. To them, he seemed a man of virtue, a patriot who had placed Rome above personal loyalty. But as he disappeared from sight, the people turned expectantly toward the next figure who would speak. It was Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal friend, who even now was approaching with the body of the slain dictator. The citizens murmured among themselves, "Let us hear what Antony will say. Surely he comes in peace, else Brutus would not have let him speak." They gathered closer, their hearts ready to be swayed once more, the air trembling with anticipation. For though Brutus's words had calmed them, Antony's voice was yet to be heard, and with it, the tide of Rome's anger could yet change. Scene 3. The Forum of Rome swelled with voices as the citizens pressed together, their eyes fixed on the rostrum. Upon it stood Mark Antony, his robe torn, his face heavy with grief. At his side, borne on a bier, lay the body of Julius Caesar, shrouded in bloodied garments, his wounds hidden but not forgotten. The conspirators had gone, leaving Antony alone with the people. They had trusted that his voice would not betray them, but Antony's heart burned with sorrow and with rage. He raised his hands, and silence spread through the crowd. His voice, low and trembling with sorrow, carried across the square. "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar," the citizens murmured, leaning closer. Antony's words seemed humble, almost resigned, but a subtle fire glimmered beneath them. "The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. Come I to speak at Caesar's funeral." The people nodded. They had trusted Brutus, yet Antony's tone, half respectful, half edged with irony, stirred unease.
"He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms filled the treasury. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man." A ripple passed through the crowd. Some frowned, others whispered, "It is true, Caesar wept with the poor." "He filled the treasury, did he not?" Antony's voice faltered with grief. He lifted the cloak that covered Caesar's body, his hand trembling. "You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? O judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me, my heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me."
He broke off, covering his face. The crowd, moved by his show of grief, cried out with sympathy. "Poor Antony, his heart is broken. Caesar was truly loved." After a moment, Antony raised his head again, his voice softer, persuasive.
"But yesterday, the word of Caesar might have stood against the world. Now lies he there, and none so poor to do him reverence. O masters, if I were disposed to stir your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage, I should do Brutus wrong and Cassius wrong, who you all know are honorable men. I will not do them wrong. I rather choose to wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you, than I will wrong such honorable men. But here's a parchment with the seal of Caesar. I found it in his closet. 'Tis his will. Let but the commons hear this testament, which, pardon me, I do not mean to read. And they would go and kiss dead Caesar's wounds, and dip their napkins in his sacred blood. Yea, beg a hair of him for memory, and dying, mention it within their wills, bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto their issue." The crowd roared, "The will! The will! Read us the will, Antony." Antony held up his hand. "Have patience, gentle friends. I must not read it. It is not meet, you know how much of Caesar's love you. You are not wood, you are not stones, but men. And being men, hearing the will of Caesar, it will inflame you, it will make you mad. 'Tis good you know not that you are his heirs, for if you should, oh, what would come of it?" The citizens, inflamed with curiosity, shouted louder, "The will! The will! We will hear Caesar's will!" Antony looked upon them with feigned reluctance. You will compel me then to read it? Then make a ring about the corpse of Caesar, and let me show you him that made the will. Shall I descend, and will you give me leave? Come down, they cried. Antony descended to the body of Caesar, drawing back the cloak. Gasps and cries broke from the people as they beheld the rents of daggers in his robe. You all do know this mantle. I remember the first time ever Caesar put it on. 'Twas on a summer's evening in his tent, the day he overcame the Nervii. Look, in this place ran Cassius' dagger through. See what a rent the envious Casca made. Through this, the well-beloved Brutus stabbed, and as he plucked his cursed steel away, mark how the blood of Caesar followed it, as rushing out of doors to be resolved if Brutus so unkindly knocked, or no, for Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel. Judge, O you gods, how dearly Caesar loved him. This was the most unkindest cut of all, for when the noble Caesar saw him stab, ingratitude, more strong than traitor's arms, quite vanquished him, then burst his mighty heart, and in his mantle muffling up his face, even at the base of Pompey's statue, great Caesar fell. He paused, his voice breaking. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen! Then I and you and all of us fell down, whilst bloody treason flourished over us. Oh, now you weep, and I perceive you feel the dint of pity. These are gracious drops. Kind souls, what, weep you when you but behold our Caesar's vesture wounded? Look you here is himself, marred, as you see, with traitors. With a sudden motion, Antony pulled back the cloth fully, revealing Caesar's body, his wounds laid bare. The crowd recoiled with horror, then cried out in grief and rage, "O piteous spectacle! O noble Caesar! O traitors, villains!" Antony seized the moment, raising his voice over their cries. "Good friends, sweet friends, let me not stir you up to such a sudden flood of mutiny. They that have done this deed are honorable. What private griefs they have, alas, I know not, that made them do it. They are wise and honorable, and will no doubt with reasons answer you. I come not, friends, to steal away your hearts. I am no orator, as Brutus is. I only speak right on. I tell you that which you yourselves do know. Show you sweet Caesar's wounds, poor dumb mouths, and bid them speak for me. But were I Brutus, and Brutus Antony, there were an Antony would ruffle up your spirits and put a tongue in every wound of Caesar, that should move the stones of Rome to rise and mutiny. The citizens could be restrained no longer. They shouted in fury, their voices shaking the forum. Revenge! Revenge! Fire! Kill! Slay! Let not a traitor live! Antony lifted his hands, pretending to calm them. Yet hear me, countrymen. Yet hear me speak. The crowd hushed, but their eyes burned with fire. Antony gave the final stroke. You have forgot the will I told you of. Here is the will, and under Caesar's seal. To every Roman citizen he gives 75 drachmas. Moreover, he hath left you all his walks, his private arbors, and new-planted orchards on this side Tiber. He hath left them you, and to your heirs forever, common pleasures, to walk abroad and recreate yourselves. Here was a Caesar. When comes such another? At this, the people erupted into wild frenzy. Their grief turned to rage, their loyalty to fury. They rushed forth from the forum, crying, "Burn the traitors' houses! Seek the conspirators, firebrands, to Brutus's, to Cassius's, tear them down." The forum became a storm of chaos. Antony stood above the body of Caesar, watching as the citizens surged out to riot. He whispered with grim satisfaction, "Now let it work. Mischief, thou art afoot. Take thou what course thou wilt." And thus, the voice of Antony had turned Rome itself into a weapon, setting fire to the city with the breath of words. Scene 4, retold in modern English prose. The forum still roared with the shouts of citizens, their fury spilling into the streets as they rushed to burn and riot. From the rostrum, Antony looked out over the chaos with grim satisfaction. His words had done their work. Rome itself now cried out for vengeance against the conspirators. Yet Antony knew the hour was dangerous. Alone, even with the people stirred, he could not hold the city for long. Brutus and Cassius would rally their allies. What Antony needed was strength, and strength might come from the young man who bore Caesar's name. As Antony lingered beside Caesar's body, a figure pressed through the crowd, slipping past the rabble. It was a servant, a young man with anxious eyes, hastily sent by Octavius, Caesar's adopted son and heir, who even now was approaching Rome. The servant bowed low before Antony. "Sir, Octavius is already near. He comes with swift steps, but I fear the city is dangerous. He bade me seek you out and ask, shall he enter Rome or wait until you advise him?" Antony's face darkened with thought. The image of Octavius rose in his mind. Still young, yet Caesar's blood flowed in his veins. With the name of Caesar, the people might rally even more fiercely. But was it safe? Brutus and Cassius still held their daggers, and the streets were not yet secured. He spoke firmly. "Tell him this, do not come into Rome yet. The people are in tumult, and it is not safe. Let him stay close, but out of sight until I can judge how fortune turns. Tonight, we shall speak together. For now, tell him I will do what I can to stir the people further and to secure the city in Caesar's name." The servant nodded, then slipped back into the surging crowd. Antony turned once more to Caesar's body. He laid a hand gently on the blood-soaked cloak, his voice dropping to a low whisper. "Caesar, your spirit walks abroad. Your enemies are fled, your friends are scattered. But by the rising of the sun tomorrow, your name shall once again command armies. Octavius will come, and with him, vengeance." He lifted his gaze to the sky, where smoke already curled from burning houses in the distance. "Now, let war breed war. Let Rome taste the steel it has drawn. With your name, Caesar, we shall raise a storm that Brutus and Cassius cannot withstand." He straightened, his grief hardening into resolve. Then, with soldiers gathering at his call and citizens rioting in the streets, Antony departed, carrying both Caesar's memory and the seed of Rome's civil war in his hands. Scene 5. Scene 5, retold in modern English prose. The sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, and Rome was in chaos. Fires burned in the streets where angry mobs had torn down the houses of the conspirators. Citizens, once scattered in fear, now roamed in packs, shouting Antony's words as though they were war cries. Some cried for Brutus's death, others for Cassius's. Statues of Caesar were draped with flowers and scarves, even as smoke and blood filled the city. Rome was no longer a place of order. It had become a furnace of rage. Amid this storm, Antony gathered in a quiet chamber with the servant of Octavius once more. The young messenger, breathless from running through the dangerous streets, delivered news. "My lord Antony, Brutus and Cassius have fled the city. They are gone, in haste, as though guilt itself gave them wings. Already, they are thought to be gathering strength beyond Rome." Antony nodded, grim satisfaction in his eyes. "Let them run. They will find that Caesar's spirit is swifter than their feet. Sooner or later, they must meet the judgment they have bought with daggers." At that moment, another messenger entered, dusty from the road. He bowed low before Antony. "Sir, Octavius is not far. He is already within reach of the city. He has heard of Caesar's murder, and he comes eager to stand with you." Antony's mind turned quickly. Octavius was young, but he carried Caesar's name and legacy. With Octavius beside him, Antony would not stand alone. Together, they could rally the people, raise armies, and crush the traitors. "Bring him to me," Antony said firmly. "This night, we shall speak of our course. Tomorrow, Rome will see that Caesar has heirs, not only of blood, but of spirit. Brutus and Cassius shall learn that their daggers have struck only a body, not the power of Caesar's name." Outside, the sounds of riot thundered louder. Cries, torches, the crash of doors being broken. Antony looked toward the window where smoke smeared the evening sky. "So it begins," he murmured. "This was the seed sown today. From Caesar's wounds have sprung 1,000 swords. Rome will bleed for this deed until justice is done." With that, Antony departed to meet Octavius, and the shadows of night spread over a city already ablaze with the fires of civil war.
Dear students, now we recall some important moments across different scenes in this Act 3. So from Scene 1, Caesar's assassination. This is the most famous moment in the play. Caesar ignores warnings from Artemidorus and the soothsayer. The conspirators kneel before him pretending loyalty and then stab him one by one. Brutus strikes last. Caesar's words, "Et tu, Brute?" reveal his heartbreak and sense of betrayal. It is not just physical death, but emotional defeat. We fund aftermath of murder case in Scene 1. The conspirators dip their hands in Caesar's blood, declaring freedom for Rome. Brutus addresses the citizens about liberty. Antony arrives, cleverly hiding his true feelings. He shakes hands with the conspirators but secretly vows revenge. He asks permission to speak at Caesar's funeral, which Brutus grants, a fatal mistake. In Scene 2. Brutus's speech. Brutus addresses the crowd with logic and honesty. He explains Caesar was ambitious and that ambition threatened Rome's freedom. Brutus appeals to reason rather than emotion. The citizens support him, calling him noble and honorable. But the calm mood will soon be overturned by Antony's skillful oration. Now about Antony's oration from Scene 2. Antony gives the most famous speech of the play. He begins humbly, calling Brutus and the others honorable men. Through irony and repetition, he sows doubt about their motives. He displays Caesar's wounds as silent witnesses of treachery. Finally, he reads Caesar's will, showing Caesar cared for the people. Antony manipulates the crowd brilliantly. Now about citizens' reaction in Scene 2. Antony's words ignite the people. Logic gives way to passion. The mob riots, seeking revenge. The crowd turns violent, burning houses and creating chaos in Rome. This shows the danger of mob psychology and how easily people can be swayed by emotion. Next, in about Cinna the poet's death in Scene 3. In a brief but powerful scene, the angry mob kills Cinna the poet simply for sharing the same name as a conspirator. Even when they realize he is innocent, they kill him for his bad verses. This symbolizes how reason and justice collapse in a state of frenzy and anarchy. Not about the conclusion. Act 3 is the climax of Julius Caesar. It contrasts Brutus's calm logic with Antony's emotional manipulation. The assassination marks a turning point, leading not to liberty, but to chaos and civil war. The act highlights betrayal, rhetoric, and the power of words to shape history. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed our journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel for more videos.